politics. I hope you are having a great Memorial Day weekend. I wanted to talk today more about Cuba. I made this video the other day, and it was about this young Cuban guy that I met he's 25. He came here when he was about 15 from Cuba, 2017, and everything that he was talking about really resonated with some of the stuff I was saying about how Cubans, when they come to America, their eyes are open to the beauties of capitalism and how much it benefits lives. And he was saying that in Cuba, it's impossible to survive without stealing, without doing things that are inappropriate just so that you can eat, because even back in 2017, things were so bad. And he was talking about how if the island was taken over by the Americans, it'll take a long time for the culture to adapt to having abundance because they have been in scarcity for so long. With that said, with the indictment of Raul Castro just last week, one of the Cuban family members who was residing in the United States as a permanent resident was taken by ICE and is facing immediate deportation acts because of her connection with Gaeza, the military complex operating in Cuba. Now, what happens in Cuba, and this is the same thing that he spoke about, is that there is this military complex named Gaeza that takes foreign dollars and keeps it offshores, overseas, and they do not invest in their own infrastructure or the Cuban people themselves. And they force the Cuban people to buy necessities or anything that has to do with like what we would consider normal, but to them luxury, like steak, shampoo, dish soap, has to be bought with foreign currency, and they're called dollar stores. So they rob the Cuban people from the opportunity of buying necessities in Cuban pesos. If you have Cuban pesos, you cannot buy things that like steak, shampoo, soap, oil, daily necessities. All that has to be done in US dollars, but they ban US dollars in cash. So you cannot have a $5 bill and go and buy something at the dollar store. It has to be digital. So then you only can use a Cuban bank. And the way you get money in that Cuban bank is if someone from overseas puts money in that account so that you can buy. But once again, they can't be from America because of the blockade. So if someone is living in Spain, if someone is living in Europe and they send money to someone in Cuba in euros or dollars, that's the only way they can buy these essentials. And also the same thing goes for oil. So Cubans who work under communism cannot buy oil, meat, they cannot buy shampoo, they cannot buy steak. And I experienced this when I was in Cuba. They cannot do that with the Cuban peso. The Cuban peso is only for like street vendors. You might be able to buy rice with it. So what they do is they take these dollars from the dollar stores and they keep them overseas. And that's why they arrested this Castro individual in the United States, because the United States was saying, we're not going to let you live in luxury while the Cuban people are suffering. So they're going after everyone in the United States related to the communist regime. They're going to deport them. They're going to send them back to Cuba. They're going to send them back to practically the hellhole that they came from and that they are exploiting. Now, the people themselves are not the hellhole. It's just the government. And with that said, I am so disappointed in ABC and some of these networks that are showing that Cubans are standing in solidarity with Raul Castro and his indictment, because there are some who might sympathize, but if anything, they're there for the birthday of their nation, which has nothing to do with the communist regime. Any news network that turns the script and says that Cubans want the Castros to stay are out of their minds. And any Cuban can tell you that. The Cuban that I spoke with, that I made that video in my car the other day with, he was saying they want Raul Castro indicted and they want him out and they want the Cuban regime out. Is it going to be annexation? Is the United States going to take over Cuba in the way Venezuela was snatched Maduro? Or is it going to be more of like a military complex situation where we go in and we just say, hey, we're taking Raul Castro, but we're also going to stay because humanitarian is in such dire needs. We've done it to Africa. We've done it to Iraq. We can do it to Cuba. The other thing is Cuban government is handing out leaflets that are telling citizens to prepare for an invasion by the United States. What me and this Cuban guy talked about the other day also is that the military is claiming there's a 1 million strong militia, and the militia doesn't exist. There's no guns except Cuban Revolutionary Guardsmen who are like back in the 60s. They're allowed to have weapons, but the young guys are not. So everything that he was talking about, training videos you see online, it's all fake. It's all propaganda. The Cuban government does not have a 1 million person militia. And even if they did, will they be willing to fight for a regime that's putting them through so much pain? The answer is probably no. They'll probably say, okay, take us over. I know for a fact that what Cuba needs is a Walmart and they need a Home Depot so they can rebuild. And they need wages that can support those types of materials. Materials are the things that are going to keep Cubans out of poverty. It's not exploitation. Jobs are not exploitation. And then in America, we still have a group of people, the BLMers, that fully embrace communism, primarily minorities of African American descent, who believe that food and shelter are a human right, and that the economic system in place that employs people is oppressive and systemically racist. It's communism, guys. They will say things like, it's a human right to be fed, it's a human right to have shelter. And that's why they are so susceptible to Section 8 housing and to food stamps. Because when you are on food stamps and you make above $600, $900 a month, you get kicked off those programs. If you get married and you're a single woman with children, you get kicked off those programs. Your income level, your household income level changes. So they will stay in poverty to get what they believe is a human right. Free clothing, free shelter, free food, free phones. That's exactly what they had in slavery, ladies and gentlemen. And the thing is that it's communism by a different name. Then the people who are really suffering from communism are trying to get the heck out of Cuba. And so much to the point that in 1996, when I was like 2 years old, the Brothers to the Rescue plane was shot down, which inherently is why Raul Castro is being indicted for murder, because there were 4 civilians and they were not government entities and they're in international waters, trying to help people who are fleeing Cuba on rafts. And that's been going on for 30 years. Nothing's changed, guys. So do you support what's going on? I will say that social media is very adamant of promoting misinformation, but also, like, there were shots rung out yesterday at the White House, another assassination attempt. And when you go on social media, there's like tens of thousands of people laughing, emojis and smiley faces and all that stuff. And I don't think that the left is that corrupt. If so, we're in trouble. Because can you imagine if there's an assassination attempt on Joe Biden and then Republicans were laughing and smearing and just saying, oh, he had it coming? That's exactly what the left is apparently doing. But honestly, the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, he broke a story that bots are infiltrating sites like Facebook and Instagram, causing misinformation, causing that. I believe that we're in a time where maybe half of the accounts on Facebook are bots. I really don't think that many people would be joyous over an assassination attempt. I believe that they're bots, and I believe that they are trying to show the world that we are more divided than we are. And we just got to not take any of it into consideration, because the end will come out. Social media is largely fake. If you look at a news article from a legitimate source, that's real. But the things you see on social media could be anything. So anyways, guys, I hope you like this. Let's hope that Cuba becomes a state soon, or a territory. And we'll see you guys on the next one.